The first time I left the Meridian study group, they had already used everything worth stealing from me. My notes, my question predictions, my mistake logs, my color-coded formula ladders, my midnight voice recordings, my ugly little diagrams that made hard concepts simple enough for people with expensive tutors to call themselves naturally gifted. I left too late. After midterms, after the rankings, after the school newsletter called Serafina Cole, the mind behind Crestwell's undefeated academic streak, after my own scholarship file gained a quiet note that said, "Contribution valuable, but collaborative boundaries unclear." Collaborative boundaries unclear meant I had done the work, and someone richer had learned how to make it look like generosity from her. By the end of that term, the Meridian group kept its perfect streak. 6 students, 5 subjects, no score under 95, and I became the unstable girl who accused her friends of stealing because she could not handle being ordinary beside excellence. 3 years later, when a university interviewer asked why my recommendation letters described me as supportive but not independently distinguished, I almost laughed in his face. Independently distinguished? I had built the system that made half my grade look brilliant. Then I died at 22 in a silent room with old flashcards scattered across the floor and an acceptance list open on my laptop, still missing my name. The last thing I remembered was Serafina's voice from senior year, soft as silk, saying, "Anya, don't be dramatic. Everyone studies together." Then I woke up on the Sunday night before midterms week, 16 again, sitting at the library's round oak table while Serafina slid a blank revision calendar toward me and said, "Anya, you'll fill in the master plan tonight, right?" I looked at her perfect handwriting, her pearl pen, the 5 expectant faces around the table, and the empty box labeled Final Midterm Strategy. Then I closed my notebook and said, "No, I'm leaving the group." The silence hit so hard the library clock sounded rude. Tick, tick, tick. 6 students sat around the Meridian table beneath the second-floor stained glass window, a place so associated with perfect scores that younger students walked past it like it was a shrine. Serafina Cole sat opposite me, back straight, hair glossy and black, cardigan cream, expression gentle in the way knives are gentle when wrapped in velvet. To her right was Felix Ward, who could solve competition math if someone first translated the problem into language he respected. Beside him sat Helena Price, biology darling, all neat highlights and nervous hands. Then Milo Grant, chemistry medalist, who laughed at every joke Serafina made because his father's firm sponsored the science wing. Then twins Lara and Elise Morrow, humanities stars who spoke in matching half-sentences and acted as if empathy were a skill they had mastered from a worksheet. And then me, Anya Vale, scholarship student, daughter of a night shift bakery worker, the girl who arrived early to borrow textbooks and stayed late to erase whiteboards because the librarian let me sit near the heater if I helped stack chairs. On paper, the Meridian Group was a peer-led academic collective. In reality, it was a factory, and I had been the engine hidden in the basement. Serafina's smile did not break immediately. That was one of her talents. She could take a slap from reality and turn it into concern before anyone else heard the impact. "Leaving," she repeated softly. "Anya, midterms start next Monday." "I know. So, this is not the moment for stress decisions." "That's exactly why I'm making it now." Felix frowned. "You can't just leave." I looked at him. "Watch me." In my first life, I did not understand how dependence can dress itself as friendship. The Meridian Group found me in year 9, when I was still eating lunch in the library, because cafeteria tables felt like countries with closed borders. Serafina invited me to study after I beat her by 1 mark in physics. She praised my summaries, said my mind was architectural, told me I explained concepts the way teachers wish they could. She made me feel seen. That was the bait. Soon I was building weekly packets because Anya's structure helps everyone. Then I was writing practice questions because you're so good at predicting what teachers care about. Then I was making error maps from everyone's wrong answers because the group works best when we learn collectively. By year 11, Serafina barely studied from textbooks. She studied me. My patterns, my shortcuts, my paranoia about exam wording, my habit of turning syllabus points into traps before teachers had even written tests. The group's perfect exam streak began the first term I joined. Teachers called it evidence of collaborative excellence. Parents called it disciplined peer culture. Serafina called it our shared work. But shared work is supposed to share credit too. In my first life, I did not ask for credit because poor girls are trained to be grateful for proximity. I thought sitting at the meridian table meant belonging. I did not realize I was furniture until they moved me. Now Serafina leaned forward, lowering her voice as if protecting me from the embarrassment of my own boundary. Anya, you're overwhelmed. That's okay. We can redistribute tasks. No, you don't have to do every subject tonight. I'm not doing any subject tonight. Helena's eyes widened. But your integrated biology chart, she stopped because even she heard herself. My chart, not ours. Felix tapped the blank calendar. We need the probability spread for calculus. Then make one. Milo gave a short laugh.
Come on.
You're the only one who does those weird predictive grids. Then the streak can survive without weird predictive grids. The words landed strangely. Their perfect streak was a sacred object at Crestwell Academy, something adults referenced in assemblies like a sports championship. 6 Meridian students had scored above 95 in every major exam for 4 consecutive terms. Not one break. Not one fall. Not one proof that they were human. In the first life, the streak survived midterms because I built them a plan so precise it felt like cheating even though I never saw the papers. I studied teacher habits, past marking rubrics, timing patterns, syllabus emphasis, textbook margins, homework corrections, and every casual phrase teachers repeated twice. Then, when 3 questions landed almost exactly where I predicted, Serafina called it collective intuition. Later, when plagiarism rumors started, she whispered that my notes looked too close to the exam and let suspicion turn toward me. This time, I stood while the calendar remained blank.
Good luck, I said.
Serafina's fingers tightened around her pearl pen. Anya, sit down. It was not loud. That made it worse. For the first time, the group heard the command under the care. I picked up my bag.
No.
Leaving the library felt less like victory and more like stepping off a moving train. My legs trembled all the way down the stairs. Through the glass wall, I could see the meridian table behind me, heads bent together in panic disguised as strategy. Serafina did not chase me. That was how I knew she was already calculating. In my first life, when I cried, she comforted. When I objected, she softened. When I threatened to leave after midterms, she organized a group conversation where everyone explained how much my tone had hurt them. But this time I left before the final plan existed, before the master packet, before the ranking predictions, before my work could be absorbed and renamed. She needed to either rebuild without me or expose how little the group had built on its own. Neither option suited her. I went straight to the front desk, where Mrs. Orla, the librarian, was stamping returns with the grim rhythm of someone who believed overdue books revealed moral weakness. In the old timeline, I came to her after everything collapsed and asked if the library printer stored file histories from the week before midterms. She said yes for 30 days. I came on day 42. Today, I placed my notebook on her counter and said, I need to archive my study materials with timestamps and restrict access to my student account. Mrs. Orla looked over her glasses. Midterms drama? Academic survival. She stood. That is usually what midterms drama means. Mrs. Orla gave me the small scanning room behind the reference shelves, the one students used for portfolio submissions and teachers used for old exam archives. I scanned my original notes, not the polished ones the group usually received, but the raw maps that proved authorship. Messy arrows, false starts, teacher pattern logs, calculation ladders, my private mistakes, my handwriting before it became clean enough for Serafina's packets. I saved them to the library server, emailed copies to myself and my mother, and printed a contents list with timestamps. Then, I did something the first life Anya would never have dared. I created a public study notice on the year group forum. Independent midterm revision sessions available in library Tuesday through Friday. Focus: how to build your own error logs and exam strategies. No private packets. Bring your own questions. My finger hovered before posting. In my first life, I guarded my methods because I thought scarcity made them valuable. Serafina understood scarcity better than I did. She turned my private work into elite currency. This time, I would make the method visible before she could sell the result. I clicked post. 3 minutes later, Serafina messaged me privately. That was unnecessary. Then, we need to talk before you embarrass yourself. Then, you know people only trust your notes because we validated them. There it was. Not friendship. Distribution control. I screenshotted every message and replied once. Then you won't need them. After that, I muted her. Monday at school felt like walking through a rumor with lockers. Everyone knew I had left the Meridian group by first bell because academic gossip travels faster than scandal if grades are involved. At Crestwell, students did not ask who was dating whom with half the interest they asked who had the best revision packet. A girl from economics stopped me near the stairs and whispered, "Is it true you and Serafina split?" As if we were a royal divorce. In chemistry, Milo avoided my eyes. In English, the Moreau twins sat together without saving the usual seat for me, which was meant to hurt and did, though not enough to make me bleed publicly. Serafina waited until lunch. She found me in the courtyard beneath the old fig tree where scholarship students ate when the cafeteria became too loud. She carried 2 paper cups of hot chocolate, one with cinnamon, because she remembered how I liked it. That memory cut deeper than any insult. "Peace?" she asked softly. I did not take the cup. "No, thank you." She sighed, sitting beside me without invitation. "You're making people choose sides."
No.
I left a study group. 4 days before midterm prep week. Exactly. Her voice lowered. "Anya, I know you think we don't appreciate you. Maybe we were careless. But walking out hurts everyone. Only if everyone was standing on my back." Her face changed. Just a flicker. "That's dramatic. It's anatomical." She looked away, then smiled sadly. "Do you know what the teachers will think if your forum sessions confuse people? If weaker students follow your strange methods and fail? You'll look irresponsible." There it was, the same weapon in a new wrapper. If I kept methods private, she owned the distribution. If I made them public, she would frame them as dangerous. "Then I'll teach process, not answers," I said. "Can you say the same?" Tuesday after school, 7 people came to my independent study session. I expected 2, maybe none. 7 felt like a rebellion in miniature. There was Nia from physics, who had always hovered near the Meridian table but never been invited because her marks were inconsistent. Omar from economics, whose family ran a grocery store and who fell asleep in class because he worked morning deliveries. Cassie from English, a brilliant essay writer who panicked during timed exams. June from calculus, quiet and precise, always one concept behind because he refused to ask questions in front of Felix. 3 or 10 students came by mistake and stayed because midterm fear is contagious across grades. We sat in the back library room while rain moved down the windows in thin lines. I did not hand out predictions. I did not give them my old packets. I drew 3 columns on the whiteboard. What I got wrong. Why I got it wrong. What pattern would trick me again. "This," I said, "is an error log. Not a shame list. Not a mark. A map." At first, they stared like I had offered vegetables at a birthday party. Then Cassie raised her hand. "So if I always run out of time on thesis paragraphs, that's an error pattern?" "Yes." "And if I understand the concept but misread the command word?" "Yes." Omar frowned. "So, we're not trying to guess the exam?" I thought of Serafina's blank calendar, her hunger for my predictive grids, the first life accusation that my notes were too accurate. "We're trying to become hard to trick," I said. Mrs. Orla, passing by with a cart of books, paused just long enough to hear that, and nod once. That nod mattered more than applause. The Meridian group adapted by pretending they were relieved. Wednesday morning, Serafina posted a polished announcement. To reduce stress, Meridian will not release a centralized midterm packet this term. We encourage all students to develop independent study habits. Proud of our community. It sounded noble if you did not know desperation had written it. 10 minutes later, Felix posted a calculus framework sheet that contained 3 of my old ladder methods, renamed as Ward's compression technique.
No. Worse.
Meridian compression method. My surname removed, the table inserted. I felt the old fury rise, so fast my fingers went numb. In the first life, I would have commented immediately and sounded petty. This time, I opened my time-stamped archive, found the original scan from Sunday night, and emailed both versions to Mrs. Orla with the subject line, "Possible unattributed use." Then, I did nothing publicly. That was the hard part. Silence can feel like surrender when your name is being peeled off your work in real time. But I had learned that public anger gives thieves something to perform against. Records give adults something to act on if they are willing. By lunch, Mrs. Orla forwarded the issue to Mr. Venn, the academic dean, copying me and Serafina. The email was short. Please clarify authorship and permission for revision materials circulated under the Meridian name. Serafina replied within 6 minutes. These methods were developed collaboratively over several terms. Collaboratively, the word that once swallowed me whole. I replied with one sentence. Please provide the version history showing collective development prior to my archive drafts. No one answered for 2 hours. That afternoon, Serafina came to the library session. Not alone. She brought the whole Meridian group, polished and quiet, entering like visiting diplomats from a collapsing empire. The students at my table stiffened. Nia's hand moved over her notebook as if hiding it. Omar muttered something under his breath. Serafina smiled warmly at everyone. We thought we'd join. Collaboration is healthier than division. Mrs. Orla looked up from the circulation desk like a hawk pretending to be a cardigan. I smiled back.
Great.
Today we're doing live problem explanation. Everyone solves one unfamiliar question and explains their reasoning without notes. Felix's face shifted. Just a little. Helena looked down. Milo suddenly became fascinated by a shelf label. Serafina clasped her hands. That sounds intense for an open session. Midterms are intense. Cassie, bless her terrified heart, pushed a blank sheet towards Serafina. You can go first if you want. The room went very still. Serafina laughed softly. I don't want to dominate. Omar said, your school rank 1. We can learn. That was not a compliment.
It was a spotlight.
I wrote a calculus optimization problem on the board, not impossible, but unfamiliar enough that memorized packets would not help. Felix could solve it if calm. Serafina could solve pieces if she understood the method she had circulated. She picked up the marker, read the problem, and smiled. This is more Felix's area. Meridian materials explain the method, I said. You posted them. Her eyes met mine. The room felt suddenly smaller. She wrote the first line correctly, then stopped, then tried to jump to the formula without defining variables. June raised his hand hesitantly. Shouldn't you set the constraint first? Serafina's smile tightened. Of course. I was getting there. She was not. The perfect streak did not die that day, but it coughed blood. Students noticed. They noticed Felix grabbing the marker to rescue her. They noticed him making an algebra error because he was flustered without the full ladder. They noticed Helena whispering, "Which sheet is this from?" when we moved to biology. They noticed Milo mixing up reaction order and equilibrium because my chemistry charts always separated them and the group's rushed version did not. No one shouted fraud. No one declared an empire fallen. That is not how academic power breaks. It breaks when the room stops assuming competence and starts checking. After the session, Nia walked beside me to the lockers and whispered, I thought they were just better. They are good, I said, because the truth mattered even when it was inconvenient. They're just not magic. Nia nodded slowly. You made them look magic. That sentence hurt more than praise. Maybe because it was accurate. In the first life, I thought my work vanished because they erased me. But I had also helped build the illusion by giving everything silently. I had mistaken invisibility for generosity. Serafina understood that generosity can be harvested if the giver is too ashamed to ask for a receipt. Thursday morning, the academic dean announced a midterm integrity readiness review for all official study groups. Cresswell loved long titles. The review required any group circulating materials to submit authorship logs, source references, and be prepared for a brief oral explanation of selected methods before Friday afternoon. It was supposed to happen quietly, but nothing involving the Meridian group stayed quiet. By noon, everyone knew the perfect streak was under review. Serafina sent me a private message. "You've gone too far." Then another. "If the streak breaks, every teacher will know you damaged school culture. Then come back tonight. We'll credit you properly." There it was, the offer the first life me had begged for after midterms. Credit.
Properly.
Now, offered not from fairness but fear. I stared at the message in the bathroom stall because that was where I had hidden between classes. My chest felt too tight.
Part of me wanted to go back.
Not because I loved them. Because being necessary is addictive when you have spent years feeling one scholarship review away from disappearing. They needed me. Finally openly. Finally desperately. Then I remembered the first life. Serafina's hand on my shoulder after I lost the scholarship interview, her voice soft as she said, "Maybe leadership roles just aren't your shape." I typed back, "Submit what is yours. I'll submit what is mine." Then I went to history with shaking hands and the strange, clean terror of someone burning a bridge she had once slept under for warmth. Thursday evening, Serafina tried to take the whole school with her. A document appeared in the year group drive titled Midterm Community Pack, Open Source. It was beautiful at first glance. Polished headings, subject tabs, summary tables, practice questions, motivational quotes, even a note at the top. Compiled collaboratively from multiple student contributions to support equal access. It should have been everything I wanted. Public support. Shared resources.
No elite gatekeping.
But the moment I opened it, my stomach turned. It was mine.
Not all of it.
Enough. Old examples from year 10, my phrasing, my diagrams, my teacher pattern headings, my error log template, my physics trap chain table, my English thesis ladder. Mixed into it were rushed Meridian edits, a few incorrect chemistry explanations, and, worst of all, several deliberate decoy mistakes from a private practice set I had created in the first life and never shared publicly this time, except I had placed similar decoys in a folder on the old Meridian shared drive before leaving, bait I hoped I would not need. Serafina had panicked and harvested everything accessible. One decoy question contained a fake historical quote attributed to a real author. Another had a calculus shortcut that worked only for one special case. Another biology diagram mislabeled the Golgi apparatus as vesicular cortex, nonsense I used once as a placeholder joke to remind myself to fix the label. Now it sat in the community pack under Meridian branding. My hands stopped shaking. Rage can be stabilizing when it becomes evidence. I saved the file, downloaded metadata, and sent it to Mrs. Orla, Mr. Venn, and Principal Saeed with a subject line that felt like a door closing. Unauthorized use of archived and decoy study materials. Friday morning arrived before midterms week with Crustwell smelling of rain, printer ink, and fear. The readiness review was scheduled for 2 p.m. in the lecture hall, but by first period, teachers had already told students not to use the community pack until verified. That alone damaged the streak more than a bad exam could have. The Meridian group's power depended on certainty. Their materials were safe. Their predictions worked. Their methods were superior. The moment a teacher said, "Do not use that yet," the aura cracked. At lunch, students argued over whether the pack was stolen, wrong, cursed, or all three. Felix looked gray. Helena cried in the bathroom. Milo told people he had not uploaded anything, which was probably true and not enough. The Moreau twins insisted, "Open source means shared ownership," which made Omar laugh so hard he choked on rice. Serafina did not appear in the cafeteria. She found me instead in the old stairwell behind the library, the same place she once comforted me after I scored below expectations in year 9. Her hair was still perfect, but her face was pale. "Anya," she said.
Please.
That word from her sounded like a foreign language. Please what? Do not speak at the review. I already submitted evidence. Evidence can be interpreted. So can silence. Her lips trembled. You don't understand what happens if Meridian loses credibility before midterms. People rely on us. People relied on you because you told them they had to.
No.
We helped them. You helped them with my work. Her eyes flashed. And what were you doing with it? Hiding it in private archives. At least I released it to everyone. You released it when you got caught. She stepped closer. I made you visible. That stopped me. What? Before us, you were the weird scholarship girl with good marks and no influence. I gave your methods reach. I gave your brain a table. I made teachers notice you. The cruelty was not that she fully lied. The cruelty was that she partially told the truth. And then, I said, you taught everyone to see the table before the person who built it. She swallowed. If you destroy me, they will still not love you. I looked at her then, really looked, and felt the last thread loosen. I'm not trying to be loved by people who need me invisible. The review began at 2 p.m. under fluorescent lights and the thin panic of students who had built identities on grades. The lecture hall held the Meridian group, me, Mrs. Orla, Mr. Venn, Principal Saeed, 3 subject teachers, and, because rumors had turned the matter public faster than policy liked, 2 student representatives from the academic council. My independent session students waited outside, not because they were involved, but because solidarity sometimes looks like sitting on hallway carpet with notebooks. Serafina sat at the front table, hands folded, expression calm again. She had recovered her mask. Felix beside her looked like he wanted to vomit. Helena kept twisting a tissue. The twins sat stiffly identical. Milo stared at the ceiling. Mr. Venn opened with a careful statement about authorship, integrity, and the importance of accurate study materials before midterms. Then he displayed the community pack on the screen. Meridian, who compiled this document? Serafina lifted her chin. I coordinated final formatting, but the content reflects years of group development and shared practice. Can you provide individual contribution logs? Our work style has historically been collaborative rather than transactional. Mrs. Orla wrote something down. I hoped it was sarcastic. Mr. Venn continued. Some sections appear to match archived materials submitted by Anya Vale before the pack was released. Serafina turned toward me with sadness polished to a shine. Anya has contributed heavily to Meridian over the years. We never denied that. You never credited it, I said. Principal Saeed looked at me. You'll have a chance to respond. I nodded, but inside I thought, I already am. Then came the oral explanation. That was where the streak truly died, not because they knew nothing, but because they knew less than their reputation required. Mr. Venn selected 3 methods from the pack and asked whoever claimed group ownership to explain them. First, the calculus shortcut. Felix began confidently, then stumbled when asked why the shortcut failed outside its condition. He had copied the result, not the limitation. June, from my independent session, could have answered it by then. Felix could not. Next, the biology diagram. Helena tried to explain the mislabeled vesicular cortex, realized halfway through that the term did not exist, and burst into tears. No one laughed. That made it worse. Finally, the history quote. One of the Moreau twins, Lara, I think, claimed it was conceptual paraphrase. The history teacher asked for the original text. Silence. It's a decoy, I said, when Mr. Venn allowed me to speak. I created it to test whether people were checking sources or copying structure. The author never wrote that sentence. Serafina's face tightened. So, you planted false material. In a private folder labeled Do Not Use, Source Check Required. Mrs. Orla projected the folder metadata. There was timestamped before the community pack. Do not use. Source check required. A warning ignored becomes a confession. The room felt colder. Principal Saeed leaned forward. Serafina, why were materials from that folder included? Serafina opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time since I had known her, there was no elegant answer waiting. Her perfect streak had depended on always having one. Felix broke before she did. Because we needed the pack, he said suddenly. Serafina turned sharply. Felix. He shook his head, face flushed with humiliation.
No, we did.
We didn't know how to rebuild everything before midterms. Anya's folders were there. We thought they were old group resources. You thought a folder labeled Do Not Use was a group resource? Mrs. Orla asked, with the calm brutality only librarians possess. Felix looked down.
No, Elena Craig harder.
Milo muttered. I didn't upload it. One of the twins whispered. Serafina said Anya was being emotional and would come back after seeing the pack. The room shifted toward Serafina. Her mask did not shatter. It hardened. I tried to prevent chaos, she said. Anya abandoned the group days before midterms. Students depend on our materials. If I had not released something, half the grade would have panicked. So you used unattributed, unverified work? Mr. Venn asked. I used what we had built together. I stood then. Not dramatically. Just because sitting while she renamed theft as service felt unbearable. No, I said. You used what I built while calling it together whenever ownership mattered, and mine whenever blame arrived. The sentence hung there. Serafina looked at me, and for 1 second I saw not the queen of the Meridian table, but a frightened girl whose whole life had been arranged around never being caught needing someone poorer than her. You wanted to be important, she said quietly. You made me important, I replied. You just hoped no one would notice. The academic decision came before midterms week began. That was what killed the perfect exam streak. Not a test score, not a dramatic failure in the exam hall, but an administrative note issued Friday at 4:36 p.m. Meridian Study Group materials suspended pending verification. All group streak recognition paused. Individual midterm preparation to be completed without unverified shared packets. Past study contributions under review for attribution. The word paused did enormous damage. The streak had been continuous, unbroken, mythic. Paused meant interrupted. Paused meant human hands had touched the machine and found oil where there should have been light. The school removed the Meridian banner from the academic board before dismissal. Students gathered around the empty space as if a portrait had been stolen. Serafina walked past without looking. Felix avoided everyone. Helena went home early. The twins argued in whispers. Milo's father called the school before the bell even rang. My independent study students found me outside the library. Nia held up her error log and said, "So, session tomorrow?" I laughed. Not because anything was funny, because the world had tilted and somehow our small table still stood. "Yes," I said. "Session tomorrow." Omar grinned. No fake author quotes. Only if you can prove they're fake. Mrs. Orla, passing behind us, said, "Finally, education." Midterms week began 3 days later without the Meridian Group's master packet. That should not have mattered as much as it did, but addiction to certainty is hard to withdraw from. Students who had relied on polished predictions suddenly had to study from syllabi, class notes, textbook chapters, and their own mistakes. It was messy. Panic rose. My independent sessions doubled, then tripled. I refused to create a replacement master pack, no matter how many people begged. Instead, we built public method sheets. How to make an error log, how to check a source, how to explain a formula before using it, how to write a thesis under time pressure, how to identify teacher command words without pretending to see the future. The sessions were not glamorous. No stained glass window. No elite table. Just library chairs, whiteboard markers, students arguing over biology terms, Omar bringing leftover grocery pastries, Cassie teaching thesis drills better than I ever could, June quietly explaining calculus constraints to 3 people who had once ignored him. By Wednesday, something strange happened. Students stopped asking, "What will be on the exam?" and started asking, "What would trick me?" That was when I knew Serafina had lost more than a streak. She had lost the monopoly on confidence. The Meridian Group's scores did not collapse into failure. That would have been too neat and, frankly, too generous to the myth.
They were smart students.
Felix still scored well in calculus, though not perfectly. Helena recovered enough to pass biology, with a mark lower than expected but honest. Milo's chemistry dropped because he had relied too heavily on my mechanism charts. The twins lost their humanities lead after misquoting a source they had never read. Serafina scored 91 overall. For most students, 91 would be excellent. For Serafina Cole, it was treated like a public illness. The perfect streak died not because they became stupid, but because the numbers finally measured them without my scaffolding hidden underneath. I scored 98 average. Not perfect. One economics question caught me because I misread a tariff scenario, and I wrote it in my error log with a savage little star beside it. That imperfection comforted me more than a perfect mark might have. It was mine.
Clearly mine.
No one could say Meridian carried me. No one could say Serafina validated me. My mark had fingerprints, and all of them were mine. Serafina came to see me after results posted. I found her waiting in the library by the stained glass window, not at the Meridian table but near the return shelves, where ordinary students stood when they did not know where else to place themselves. She looked smaller without the table behind her.
Not weak.
Serafina would never be weak, but unarranged. Congratulations, she said. I placed my books on the counter. Thank you. You got what you wanted. Did I? Her mouth tightened. The streak is dead. The teachers are reviewing past packets. Felix won't speak to me. Helena cries if someone says source check. Everyone thinks you're the honest one now. I am not the honest one now, I said. I was honest before. People can just see it now. Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. She was too proud for that unless an audience made tears useful. You could have handled it privately. I almost laughed. Privately is where my name disappeared. She flinched. Good. You left us days before midterms. I left you before you could use me one more time. Silence moved between us, filled with years of shared tables and stolen credit. Then she said the cruelest honest thing she could have chosen. I did need you. I looked at her. I know. Not just the notes. Her voice was quieter now. The way you see exams. The way you make everything less slippery. I hated that everyone thought it was me, but I also needed them too. If I wasn't the mind behind the streak, I was just another high-scoring girl with expensive tutors. There it was. The wound beneath the theft. Not an excuse. Never an excuse. But the human ugliness inside the machine. Then you should have been another high-scoring girl, I said. That would have been enough. She laughed once broken. You say that because you never had enough to lose. My anger cooled into something sharper.
No, Serafina.
I say that because I did. The review eventually credited several past materials to me, though the language was careful in the way schools are careful when admitting public praise went to the wrong student. Primary contributor. Substantial original framework. Unattributed methodology. Not stolen. Not exploited. Institutions dislike verbs that bleed. But the correction entered my file, and that mattered. Mrs. Orla wrote a recommendation letter describing my independent revision program and my commitment to ethical academic support. Mr. Venn asked me to formalize the error log sessions into a peer workshop for the next term. I said yes on one condition. No student group would own the materials privately. They would sit on the library server, versioned, credited, accessible. He agreed faster than I expected. Maybe embarrassment made administrators generous. Maybe he genuinely understood. Either way, the Meridian table lost its shrine status. Students still studied there, but not exclusively, not fearfully. Sometimes year 10s ate chips on it while making flashcards. I considered that healthy disrespect. By the end of term, the school newsletter published an article titled From Perfect Streaks to Better Study Culture, which was a horrible title and therefore definitely written by an adult. It mentioned Serafina only once. It mentioned me twice. More importantly, it mentioned the library sessions, the open materials system, and the idea that academic success should be reproducible, not mysterious. My mother cut out the article and taped it to our fridge, beside grocery lists and electricity bills. They should have put your picture larger, she said. They put the library larger. The library did not raise you. Mrs. Orla, when told this, replied, the library helped. Both were true. I kept my original Sunday night archive receipt in my desk drawer. Sometimes I unfolded it just to feel the strange power of a timestamp. It was proof that before the group panicked, before the community pack, before the review, before the streak died, I had taken my work back quietly and given it a place to stand. Years later, when people asked why I became a teacher who hated study secrets, I told them about the meridian table. Not always the full story. Not the rebirth, not the death, not the first life university rejection that still haunted me in dreams. I told them enough. I told them that perfect streaks can hide unfair labor. That the student who explains everything may not be the one getting the certificate. That collaboration without attribution is just theft with better manners. In my classroom, every group project begins with contribution logs. Every shared document shows version history. Every tutoring session teaches process before answers. Students complain because teenagers treat documentation like a personal insult until it saves them. I smile and keep the records. I have learned that brilliance is not diminished when credited. Help is not less beautiful because it names the helper. And any group that collapses when one girl stops doing invisible work was never a study group. It was a dependency with branding. On my last day at Crestwell, I returned to the library after the final bell. The meridian table stood beneath the stained glass window, scratched now, less sacred. Someone had carved a tiny formula into one edge. Someone else had written "check your sources" in permanent marker before Mrs. Orla caught them and, I suspect, pretended not to know how to remove it. I sat there alone for the first time since leaving the group. In the first life, that table had been where I gave myself away piece by piece. In the second, it was where I learned that walking out can be the first honest contribution you make. I opened my notebook and wrote one final error log entry, not for a subject, but for myself. Error. Mistook being needed for being valued. Cause, loneliness, scholarship fear, praise from polished people. Pattern likely to repeat, when access is offered in exchange for invisibility. Correction. Leave before the final packet. Keep timestamps. Teach the method where everyone can see. I closed the notebook, ran my fingers over the carved words on the table, and smiled. Midterms week had not even begun when their perfect streak died. It died the moment I stood up with my work still in my bag and refused to let 6 brilliant people keep calling my spine a shared resource.